Out here, there's no one way of doing things. No unwritten rules. And no shortage of adventure. Because out here, the only requirement is having fun. Bank of America invites kids 6 to 18 to golf with us. For a limited time, sign them up for a free one-year membership, giving them access to discounted tee times at thousands of courses. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/golf with us. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America. Restrictions apply. See BofA.com/golf with us for complete details. Copyright 2025 Bank of America Corporation.
The spirit of innovation is deeply ingrained in America, and Google is helping Americans innovate in ways both big and small. The Department of Defense is working with Google to help secure America's digital defense systems, from establishing cloud-based zero-trust solutions to deploying the latest AI technology. This is a new era of American innovation. Find out more at g.co/American innovation.
Time for this week's edition of the Terry's Talkin podcast. I'm David Campbell, host of this podcast, and just back from 3 days of hiking, Mr. Terry Pluto. Terry, you were down south in southern Ohio, and people who get your newsletter every Wednesday, go to cleveland.com/Pluto, click on the blue bar at the top to subscribe. There were some really great pictures of wildlife. It looks like spring has sprung down there a little earlier maybe than up here. It sounds like a great time.
Yeah, Wayne National Forest outside of Marietta. It's really a nice place to go. It's not far, and they have a lot of pretty good trails. So then I followed up 3 days of hiking with doubleheader press conferences today.
How else would you want to follow up?
Yeah, that's right. Browns and then the Cavs back to back.
Hanging out with a bunch of sports writers asking questions. All right, well, let's get into it, Terry. There is a lot to get to. You had a busy day today. We're taping this on Thursday because you were off the early part of this week, and we also wanted to make sure we were able to get Andrew Berry's press conference this morning, his pre-draft press conference, and then you also were over at Cavs talking to them about the playoffs, which start Sunday. But let's start with the Browns. Andrew Berry this morning, these pre-draft press conferences are notorious for the lack of information. But what did you glean from it? What did you take from it today?
I thought he was more candid than usual in that he certainly did nothing to downplay the speculation about taking Travis Hunter. He's a unicorn. He's Shohei Ohtani. He plays 12,000 snaps a game and never sweats, never pants. It's just, you could tell he was blown away. And maybe because if they're going to take him at number 2, they could take him at number 2. I mean, Cam Ward's going number 1 unless the Titans, there. Or he's trying to build up a market for Hunter at number 2 to trade. But I don't think so. I really think they like him. I didn't feel any trickery going on with that.
Yeah, and so you came out a week ago in your newsletter and told people that you were on the Travis Hunter train, or whatever you want to call it, that the Browns should take him. Do you feel so? Again, the two questions we always ponder is like, what should the Browns do, and then what will the Browns do? I think you've settled on Hunter for what the Browns should do, but did you leave there today feeling more or less likely that the Browns will take him at number 2?
More likely that they'll take him.
Oh, okay.
Maybe that's the impression he wanted for another reason, or maybe he's just setting it up that this is who we're going to take, and get ready for it. I have this in my column today, a list of I just looked at the last 10 years of drafts, and so quarterbacks taken number 2 in the draft. And here's the list. The last 10 years. Mitchell Trubisky, Carson Wentz, what's his name?
Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson. Yeah, I can't even say his name. He was so bad. C.J. Stroud, Jason Daniels, and Marcus Mariota. So you got 6. You got Stroud looks like a star. Daniels looks like a star. Has played only 1 year. Stroud had a really good first year, but he was so-so in his second year. But I happen to think he's good. I don't know. I think he's a good player.
He's going to be great. They had so many injuries in Houston this year.
So we put 2 stars next to their names. Then you go Well, Wentz started well, but he started getting hurt too, back injuries, everything else, and so basically I count him as a miss at number 2. He helped them right away, but that was it. Wilson's just a total bust. Trubisky's become a backup. Mariota, backup. And see, many of those I think were forced picks at number 2,
No
which
doubt.
is what a quarterback at number 2 this year would be a forced pick, especially if Hunter and all other people are big on Abdul Carter. And the other guy was it Mason Graham, I believe, the tackle
From Michigan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, some people really think he's going to be terrific. So the point, and then also, I don't have it in front of me, but some of the other guys that were taken number 2 generally have been pass rushers, and they have fared better because I think they were just being taken because they were high on their draft board.
And so 4 out of the 6 that you're chronicling here, Terry, haven't really worked out. And I remember the Trubisky courtship. I mean, these are like it's like shotgun weddings. It really is.
Yeah.
There was this kind of romance between the Bears and Trubisky, and I remember that he set up a dinner in North Carolina for them, and he put the reservation under their name Jim McMahon, and they just fell head over heels for Mitch Trubisky. And like I don't think that's a good way to find your quarterback. It needs to be more clinical, and yes, you need to take into account the guy's personality and his leadership and what kind of person he is. But these hot and fast romances between teams and quarterbacks, they like right here, like 66% of them haven't worked out. Like when somebody jets up a team's draft board to number 2 and all of a sudden they're being taken. So I think you're right. The Browns are not doing that this time.
Yeah, Trubisky, I think, had 13 college starts. Mariota and Wilson came out of the real funky systems that help quarterbacks jack up their stats. Wentz, North Dakota State, I liked him coming out of college. I will say that because he played in a pro system. He played under center, and I know that the old North Dakota State, that's the old one division AA, but they're a powerhouse team, and he had the same coach who later went to Wyoming and had Allen as his quarterback. So the same thing, and both of those guys, were prepared for the NFL. I think actually Wentz probably would have been pretty good, but he had a real bad back injury like in his 3rd year, and then fingers. It just seemed like couldn't be healthy. But a lot of people also thought that was a forced pick at number 2. So there you go. You know what? Your team's not very good, David. The Browns or the Bears, either one. And so when you're not that good and you're drafting number 2 and you got a chance to take a player who perhaps is going to make multiple Pro Bowls, take them. That's it.
Yeah, and there's the Browns have a lot of issues after going 3-14, and I just think that Hunter solves some problems for them, like right away. And whether they put him on offense and have him play a little bit of third down defense, like there's help. He will provide help in at least one area, probably 2, maybe even 3 if he returns kicks.
And he has this thing about wanting to play both ways. You could fix that. He doesn't have to play 114 snaps a game. That's exactly what he played in college, 114 snaps a game. He doesn't have to play that. But you could give him 10 or 15 on defense, passing situations or whatever. I mean, I agree with Barry. The reason I'm enamored with him, 96 catches, 3 drops. And you could just see basically, the other interesting thing came out of that, which I had written because I had heard it from a top source, but Barry said it, that it's a totally open competition between Pickett and Flacco. But you could just sort of see Jerry Jeudy running down one sideline and Hunter the other, and let Joe just fire it down the field and see who could run under it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny. I was trying to think of who Hunter might remind me of in the NFL, and I kept thinking about Deshaun Jackson from the Eagles when he was in his heyday.
Mm-hmm.
Not a real tall, imposing athlete, but just somebody who's got speed and separation and makes big plays all over the field all day. And the Browns need that. So we'll see. I think Shedeur Sanders might drop. I think we might see him drop to maybe he won't even be the second quarterback off the board. I could see him falling a little bit, and some of these other guys. I just wonder if the hype equals the talent, and teams are really just digging in on him. And I'm thinking he might drop a little bit.
I mean, I think he's going to be a fairly decent NFL quarterback. It's not like you're sitting there going, "Boy, this guy is the second coming of Wilson or even Mariota." I think he'll be better than that, but I really just believe that you're drafting number 2. You got a chance to get a terrific player. Go ahead. But in general, the rule on draft day is quarterbacks go higher than you think. And although like the Kenny Pickett draft, wasn't he the only one picked in the first round that year, I believe?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was a really small quarterback.
And that was considered a desperation move by Pittsburgh. Now, I do know for a fact Andrew Berry really likes Pickett. And I know that last week we talked about the stats of Geno Ford and also Geno Smith. Excuse me. Geno Ford was a basketball player.
Yes,
there we
go.
Jeez. I'll tell you one thing. Back-to-back press conferences, my mind is usually mush to begin with, and it really is. Well, Geno Ford, who has the same first name as Geno Smith, one was a point guard, one was a quarterback. And anyway, let me carry it farther. Geno Ford, by the way, is the coach of Stony Brook. Take that from basketball. He was at Akron U.
He was a Mr. Basketball in Ohio. If I remember.
He was.
Yeah.
But the point is that you could force this stuff with quarterbacks and really make a mess, or you could say, all right, we have a feeling that Pickett could be, the Donald, or he could be like Geno Smith. In other words, a guy that needs a second chance in the right environment. In fact, then Barry, because I asked him about Milroe and Jackson Dart, because he said something earlier about part of it is getting a quarterback in the right place. Basically, it's like one of the things to say about restaurants. It's not the whole story, but a good half of it is being in the right location. Being right off the interstate at that place or right by the right shopping area. And so I asked him about Milroe and Dart, and he said he just offered this up, that Milroe ran a faster 40 than Lamar Jackson. I thought, why is he throwing that out there? That's interesting.
Yeah.
And Dart, he sounded like, because I asked him, I said, well, the one, Milroe was this athletic guy, and Dart was in this Lane Kiffin sort of quarterback friendly system at Ole Miss, and he just he kind of danced around all that. But I wondered why he threw that out there on Milroe.
Well, I'm predicting that I think the Browns are going to get both of those guys. I really do. I think they're going to take Hunter at number 2, and I think they might move up into the bottom of the first round if they have to get Milroe, because you could put him in on a red zone situation.
Sure.
And just have a package for him just to get his feet wet and let him learn behind the 2 guys who've been in the league for a while. And you need playmakers. There's another playmaker, right?
I mean, right now, my guess, by the way, here's early prediction. I say they end up starting Kenny Pickett to open the season to test their theory about him being the next reclamation project after Darnold and Ford, who's actually Geno Smith. And boy, oh boy, this is really just a tremendous thing as you get older. You get the names wrong, you even know what it is in your head. I just feel kind of like a Vinny Testaverde. Now and then he told me, part of me was colorblind, and I just end up throwing the ball in the double coverage.
I don't know how Hoynesy does it. He's been covering baseball for 40 years.
I don't either.
He's covering like grandkids of people that he covers.
I don't know how he does it. I do know sometimes he wears two belts when he goes to the press box, which is better than having none. Think about that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's the list of those guys. That's what he said. What did you take from the press conference?
I think we've covered most of it. It's hard to tell whether they're saying things because they feel it or because they want people to think they feel it. and it's all a big surprise. We don't know what they're going to do. So you can sit here and analyze it, but you never know what the motives are. You never know what they're trying to get across. I just really feel like it is going to be Hunter, and I feel like they're going to try and get Milroe. And Tommy Reese has a relationship with him already.
Yeah, he had a good year with Reese. He didn't have such a good year after Reese had left, and maybe that's it. Well, so this way, they'll have a pretty good idea about his work ethic and everything else. That is
and what the
there.
difference was between 2023 and 2024 when he didn't have as good of a year.
And also, well, Reese was there with Saban, correct? And then,
yep.
And I don't know who the offensive coordinator that came in with the new coach, the guy from Washington, but we will see.
Yeah.
You know, this is interesting. It's like one of the questions Barry was asked is identifying the quarterback you want and when to take him the biggest challenge of the draft. And he said, I don't know about, I put it that way. This is Barry. Obviously, quarterback's the most important position. I think the biggest thing we're thinking about going to the draft is really just adding good players and good prospects, not overthinking it. Like, you can't necessarily dictate the draft, and you certainly have more influence when you're picking as high as we are, but we're really just looking to add good players.
And we've seen this for years, Terry. The team that wins the Super Bowl kind of influences everybody else.
Yeah.
And if you look at the way the Eagles were built, it's not like a quarterback-centric team the way the Chiefs are. And I just think that's where the Browns are right now. It's like, we're going to build a good team and have a good quarterback. And, you know, the Eagles aren't winning because of Hurts. He's helping them win, but they're not winning because of him. It's because they have a good team around him. And I think that's where the Browns' heads are at right now.
And remember, Barry does kind of worship the Eagles. He worked there for a year under Howie Roseman. He loves their kind of thought process. And so that's another reason. I think that was part of the reason they picked up Pickett, too. I think he thought that Pickett picked up some stuff being with the Eagles. They also believe, the Browns being they, that when Pickett was with Pittsburgh, Matt Canada, in other words, it was not very friendly. They really believe that Stefanski will do a lot better job with Pickett. And then if it doesn't work, you've got Joe Flacco. Only he won't be on the couch. He'll be on the bench waiting to come in.
And familiar with the way things run in Cleveland.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, you could put him right in there. And I do really believe, though they won't say this, that part of the reason they went for the two veteran, younger veteran, older veteran, is they know that, 3-14 or whatever, that's not going to fly here. They got to get up around, I know it's hard to go 500 when there's 17 games, but they got to get in that 8 to 9 win area, or everybody's going to be picking players next year, and none of those people are with the Browns right now.
That's where they are. All right, so the Flacco thing happened last week after we podcasted. Anyway, the headline you had on your column, I think it was about the deeper meaning of the Flacco signing. I think let's talk about that for a second. What are you expecting from him? What do you think Browns fans should expect from him? And what do you think it did mean in terms of the deeper meaning?
Well, let's start with the deeper meaning first. What it meant was, again, continued repudiation of the Watson era. This is really about that. And I highlighted how they changed offensive line coaches. They brought in a guy, I think his name was Bloomgren from Rice. He was a former head coach. He was a Bill Callahan disciple who worked with Callahan earlier in his career in the NFL, where why they got away from zone blocking, I don't know. I don't know why they did anything last year. You took a team that was with 4 different quarterbacks and won 11 games, that was 10th in scoring, and you ripped up the whole coaching staff. And you ripped up the whole way you did offense because you're trying to salvage something from Watson. But in the process, like the linemen talked about how they didn't like the way it was being run.
Yeah,
the new scheme, yeah. And it just fell apart in so many areas. Remember, they led the league in passes attempted. It was crazy. Okay, so what you're back to now is Flacco and Pickett, they really believe could be really good in Stefanski's system. Stefanski has a really good track record of helping quarterbacks play better, as long as they're not named Deshaun Watson. I mean, even Baker. I mean, to this day, it's hard not to go back into the Baker stuff, but because because he's done so well since he left here. But they played him while he was hurt. And I'll never understand that. My Roberta asked me that the other day. I forgot we were talking about that and go, why did they do that? And whose decision? I go, I don't know. It just was crazy. But everybody knew he was hurt, and he had surgery right after that. And then they got on to, we got to get another quarterback. And so there you go. But Jacoby Brissett had one of his best years, or his best year. Flacco, revived his career. Baker had really good year in 2020 with Kevin. And then you even could go back to Case Keenum. He was like, I think he was like 12-3 as a starter one year in Minnesota with them. And of course, now Cousins has played well with several different coordinators and play callers. But like I said, other than Sean, I mean, I'm not counting DTR, these marginal guys. When he's had like quote unquote real quarterbacks, they've done well, and he's adjusted their system.
Yeah, and I wanted to point out Irie Harris, one of our Browns reporters, put an interesting post up today. He kind of did a by the numbers look at Flacco. I thought I'd grab a couple of those. I
Sure.
think what you're going to see is probably what you saw in 2023. I think you're right,
Yeah.
Terry, that they kind of fit well together, Stefanski and Flacco. But his air yards per completion was 7.6 with the Browns, and air yards per completion is, if you have an 80-yard pass, you can throw it 80 yards down the field and a guy catches it in the end zone, or you can throw it 10 yards and the guy runs it 70, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the 10-yard one will be 10 air yards and the 80-yard one will be 80 air yards. So anyway, Flacco's air yards per completion with the Browns in 2023 was 7.6. And last season with the Colts, it was 6.9. So he had a higher air yards per completion. And his turnover-worthy plays, which is always an interesting stat to me, and that basically measures how many times you fumble and how many passes you throw that could have been intercepted or deserve to be intercepted. And he had 8 turnover-worthy plays in Cleveland when he was here, and he had 11 with the Colts. When he was with Cleveland, he had 1 turnover-worthy play every 25 and a half plays. When he was with the Colts, he had 1 turnover-worthy play every 22 and a half plays. So he was a little bit worse with the Colts. And so I think if you're a Browns fan, you're kind of hoping that he'll be the better version that he was in 2023 than he was in Indianapolis in 2024.
And I've harped on that. It seems like I feel like I'm some guy, like some Old Testament prophet, yelling repent or whatever things about this. It's like, it's not just turnover worthy. It's like, do you throw touchdown passes too? Colt McCoy or some of these other guys that we had here, they didn't have too many turnover-worthy plays, but they couldn't throw the ball more than 20 yards downfield, and they didn't score much either. I mean, that doesn't mean you just fire it into triple coverage all the time, but I'll tell you this. If you're facing Joe Flacco, and he's got Hunter and Jerry Jeudy, and you're that defensive coordinator, that's going to keep you up at night. And then if you have
healthy
say
Njoku.
you have healthy Njoku, and then you draft a running back, and you come back with a couple of the guys they have here. And you go back to actually zone blocking. I'm not saying Super Bowl, but it's like this. It was just inexcusable what happened last year with them being 3-14. It was inexcusable for them to tear up the coaching staff and change the blocking scheme. And with the deeper meaning of the Flacco signing, following some of the coaching changes again, was why did we break something that was not broken? And why do we try to fix something that was already fixed? If you're 10th in scoring, you're set.
And from that to 32nd.
Yeah.
And I love the way it's a fun phrase you've been using, Terry, that this layout you just put there with that personnel gives the offense some sizzle. It's the way you've been phrasing it.
It does.
It's a great word. It's exactly, and I think the fans will like it.
Yeah, part of the. Now, I was told by one of the, obviously it's not from the football end of it, but one of the things that they talked about internally of the Browns was they thought that having Deshaun Watson would have raised the excitement level and the entertainment level because of how he played, the scrambling, all that stuff with Houston. And there is some credence to wanting an exciting team to watch play. But they were awful. They were boring. They were terrible. And Heck, Deshaun Watson didn't have that many turnover-worthy plays. He just didn't have any very good plays at all.
Yeah, and the ball wasn't going down the field much at all
No.
either. So, but yeah, I was just throwing those numbers out because people are wondering, well, are we going to get the worst version or a better version or the same of when Flacco's here? So his play went down a little bit. So I guess the question is, will he be what he looked like in 2023? He's a couple of years older. So, we have one more thing on the Browns here, Terry. We got an email from Keith. It's draft related. I thought we'd throw it in here this week. And Keith says, hey guys, Derek Carr may start the season on IR and may be done in New Orleans after the 2025 season. If New Orleans wants to move up to number 2 to take Sanders, what will it take from a draft capital standpoint to swap first-round picks with the Browns? It certainly would cost New Orleans their 2026 first-round pick, but how much more would Andrew Berry ask for?
So you're going up, what, how many?
All right, so there's a bunch of different charts that with point values for the draft. I found this one called the Fitzgerald-Spielberger chart.
Ooh, that sounds very official, doesn't it?
It is very scientific. But anyway, the number 2 overall pick on this chart is worth 2,649 points. The number 9 pick, which the Saints have now, is worth 1,887. So I think Keith saying that they would have to throw in another first rounder, like who knows? Like maybe because it's the number 2 overall pick, but they would be getting back number 9. So
too bad. I want you do that for. I don't want to do that, but if I did.
Yeah. So anyway, the difference is 762 points. So if they traded 2 and 9. So the Saints, if they threw in their second round pick, which is number 40 this year, that's 1,131 points. So that would be 400 over, and that's probably, more than New Orleans would want to give. But again, it's the number 2 pick. And as you mentioned with quarterbacks, I think top 5 picks have a premium. So maybe it would be number 9 and number 40 for number 2. But I agree, Terry. I don't think the Browns are going to do that. I think they need a star.
That would be the
player.
kind of thing you do when you're just like, you're not thinking. You're looking at spreadsheets and stuff like that. I mean, if you really believe that he is Shohei Ohtani, I'm quoting Andrew Berry, and he's a unicorn, and he played 12,000 snaps or whatever it was, and he never got tired, what are you waiting for so you can send him to some other team, the Giants or who's ever going to draft after New Orleans? Or I forgot who, Las Vegas, I don't know, whoever it was. I mean, the old Bill Walsh thing, if you don't take them, then you're going to end up playing against them.
Yeah. I think you're right. And it's funny. I don't think, unless a number 1 overall pick has ever demanded to be traded, it's a very hockey thing. Like the number 1 overall pick in the NHL never gets traded.
Yeah.
You take the guy you really like and you watch him for 20 years, hopefully. And I think that's where the Browns are right now. They just want to take the pick, the guy they like, and just roll
I thought it was significant that at the owners' meeting, Haslam did talk about the same thing Barry just said, that we need to get more good players, period, as opposed to being quarterback-centric. And I'm really hope they stay with that. By the way, I thought question on JOK, some fans have asked, will he be ready in 2005? Here's the exact quote. So again, JOK's timeline, I think mentioned it last time, it's a bit nebulous. He is progressing, but again, right now, I don't necessarily have a definitive date.
So this reminds me of when you talk about some Guardians pitchers like James Karinchak and others, like, don't plan on seeing them.
Yeah.
Right? That's what that
right.
means.
Yeah. And to quote Earl Weaver, but he would then explain it. He always said, I remember asking him about a player, and he goes, well, he's dead to me. And Earl looked at, you could tell a young writer, like, he goes, now pull it out. I don't mean I want him dead or he's dead. He said, but I'm here making up my lineup. And I'm planning for this game, and I'm planning for the next week. He ain't even picked up a bat yet. Now, how am I going to plan that in? You see him pick up a bat, swinging some pitches. You come back and talk to me, and then you ask me the question. And the same thing here when you talked about, was it a neck and back injury? What exactly does JOK have?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's neck and back, but I don't have the exact
It's like
terminology.
That's the other thing. They haven't even told us exactly what happened.
Yeah,
so
it was serious.
It's serious. And it's just like if a guy has a big arm injury, in baseball. And is serious, until he starts throwing. So that's why I know they're keeping it that way. Nebulous is very nebulous as a word. So, and I really think that. Here's what Barry said. And this, I asked him about are you having a competition with Pickett and Flacco? He said, Terry, it's about breeding competition. He says, in terms of Joe versus Kenny, I kind of mentioned earlier, he can fit in a number of different spots in the room. Joe can. We know him well. He's an excellent play-action passer. He functions in our kind of system with Kenny, a younger mobile guy who's very smart and protects the ball. I think there's more physical ability in Kenny, but a guy we did a lot of work on during the draft process before, and we saw him twice a year in Pittsburgh. We think there's a lot more to get out of him. So there you go. That's why I said I really think that they're going to call it a competition, but I think Pickett's going to get a real long run on that to win that early job.
Which, given the age difference, he probably should. So I guess we'll see how it goes.
I'm fine with it because you know how it is in Cleveland. Usually about 17 quarterbacks play a year.
Yeah. All right, we got one more Browns email here, Terry, and then we'll wrap up the Browns segment. This is from Dan Zagaric. Dan is a John Marshall class of 72 member,
okay,
and he's living in Connecticut now. He says, hey, I see the Browns have signed Flacco. Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore are still free agents. I hope they don't re-sign Moore, but what do you think about signing Cooper? Cooper runs such nice routes, and Flacco hit him in stride when they were both here. Moore seems to be on a different page than the quarterback, which led to interceptions. What do you think of Amari Cooper, Terry? That ship may have sailed, right?
The fact he played so poorly going to Buffalo, and they wanted him to play well. And remember, he was trying to get a longer contract, and they were very hesitant to do anything. I think tells you that either he's got some injuries or something else is going on. Look, I want Jerry Jeudy and Travis Hunter. I don't want to kind of go rummage sale shopping for a guy who was here.
I agree. Sometimes things end well between a player and a team where it's like, hey, we understand you're looking for more money or whatever. I don't think it ended well here with those two, and I don't think they want to revisit it. That's the sense I got. So
no, they probably will bring in another veteran receiver, and they'll probably draft a guy lower again that they like or something like that. I'm really interested to see what they do with running backs, though. They've got to take a guy that they think, even if he's third or fourth round, because you can get some good ones there. But a guy that you think can really play. They have to get some fresh legs in there.
And it's a deep draft for running backs. It's a good running back draft, so they should be able to find somebody in those lower rounds.
Everybody loves a kid from Boise State, whose name escapes me at the moment.
Ashton Jeanty?
Ashton Jeanty.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see him at all?
Yeah.
And?
I think he looks good. He'll be a good NFL player.
But he's, all of a sudden running backs are getting a little value, so where they were being dismissed before, he may go in the first round. Well, by the way, one of the guys that did go number 2 in that list of the last 10 years was Saquon Barkley. Yeah.
Yep. And that's who Jeanty says he wants to be like. He's like,
remember they were
the Giants.
The Giants were made fun for doing that. Oh, you took a running back too high. I think the Eagles will say they took him just right.
Yeah, I would think they would agree with that. So
yeah.
All right, let's take a break here, Terry. Do you want to do Cavs first or Guardians when we come back from the break?
Let's do Guardians.
All right, sounds good. I want to get your thoughts on Triston McKenzie because it's so unfortunate and sad what we saw last night. It's got to be hard on him, and I want to know what you think might happen and what maybe how the Guardians should handle that. We'll get into that and some Cavs playoff talk when we return on Terry's Talkin.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's tax season, and we're all a bit tired of numbers. But here's one you need to hear. $16.5 billion. That's how much the IRS flagged for possible identity fraud last year. Now here's a good number. $100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed. Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
All right, we're back on Terry's Talkin. I think we mentioned Terry's newsletter earlier. It comes out every Wednesday at noon. It's just chock full of great stuff. And a lot of times he'll let you know first what he's thinking about the draft or the Cavs playoffs or whatever. Sign up for that. Go to cleveland.com/Pluto. There's a blue bar at the top, and you can subscribe right there. I think there's a 2-week free trial. So try it. You will like it. Guardians, Terry. I don't know. What do you want to start with? Should we start with Triston McKenzie?
No.
Let's start with something else. What do you want to start with?
Too grim.
All right.
Start.
What do you want to start with?
Well, I hope I continue to be wrong about him. Gabriel Arias. 288, 894 OPS, 4 homers, 8 RBIs. I did not see any of that coming. And to the Guardians' credit, he was out of options. They basically handed him the job. Of course, Juan Brito and some of these other guys and Angel Martinez did nothing in spring training to push the envelope on that. But Arias has gotten the opportunity, and he's taken off with it. And he's hit some shots to center and right center. He's been pretty good at second. He could play other positions. By the way, remember the big trade for Clevenger? They still have Arias and Cantillo to show for that.
And Clevenger's got DFA'd by the White Sox in the last day or two.
By the way, that was sad watching him the other day against the Guardians. Remember, he couldn't throw a strike. They tried him in the bullpen, and that's so. Anyway, I wanted to mention him and say I'm glad I was wrong. I hope I stay wrong. Meanwhile, if we look down on the farm for second base, the guy that I love, Juan Brito's off to a really good start, hitting 291, couple of homers, 5 doubles, 897 OPS. If you go a little deeper at Double-A, because it's always fun to watch Bazana, 293, got a homer. He has 3 triples. 930 OPS. So that's always good.
And that batting average, Terry, was I think after he went 0 for 5 yesterday.
Yeah.
So he was above 300, right?
Yeah, he's been above 3. He got off I think he started like 6 for 14 or something. But so it's really encouraging they could do, because now, here's one of the options it gives them. If Rocchio, who's been struggling, continues to struggle, they could move Arias to short and go with one of the kids to second base. That's a real option for them.
I could see that, and Daniel Schneemann has been kind of moving around the diamond, but that's they need more, right? More production, and so I think he's batting 154 if I remember coming into today's game. So there's a lot of averages in the 100s that are not going to be.
All right, then we look down to the minors a little bit. So I'm looking at, all right, Noel, Big Christmas, 182, 0 extra base hits. Silence.
Yeah.
Nolan Jones, 132. He's got 3 doubles, but this guy, it's like 160 at bats or something going back to last year. And he didn't hit a home run in spring training. And so I don't know if this guy's back is still bad or whatever. But so I said, all right, what's in the minors? And one thing about this guy, you kind of know what he can do. Will Brennan. He could hit 260. He's not a bad outfielder. Not very good against lefties. But he's sitting down there. He's hitting 328 at Triple-A, which you would expect. No homers, 8 RBIs. So that's a move they can make. You could send Jones down. You could do whatever. I guess Jones is out of options. But frankly, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Last I saw,
could you ever see a day, Terry, where they would move Bazana to right field or something to get him an open position?
Well, I heard that. The other possibility, now that he played 8 or 10 games in the outfield last year, was Brito. That's you could end up getting them both in there.
Yeah.
Bazana at second, Brito in the outfield. Neither one of those guys is outstanding defensively. So whichever one would be more adaptable. I had a scout tell me when I was, because we were talking about Brito and Bizana. This is when I went to Lake County a couple of years ago to scout um, uh, Bizana and that, and he told me he was a Western Conference or a Western Division American League scout. He said that he thought Travis could play the outfield. He said he's a pretty good athlete, not great. Because he said it's not like you would be taking, as he said, Jimenez off of second base. So the idea would be just get bats in the lineup. But I was trying to find an option because watching Noel and Jones, I know it's early, but man, they're not giving you any hope. That's the tough thing. It's not like when if Noel were hitting 182 with 2 or 3 homers, it's like, okay, well, when he does hit one, it goes somewhere. And now just a little context of some stuff. Angel Martinez was hitting 344 down there when they brought him up, and that was this. Now this is a weird story from AAA. They have this guy Will Wilson, who's a minor league infielder that they had picked up in the minor league draft. I think his last stop was Pittsburgh. He's hitting 345 with 4 homers at Columbus. He's a career 236 minor league hitter. I mean, he's at like 216 in the minors. It's like, I don't know what to make of it other than it's early.
Dramatic jump.
Yeah. They liked him for a reason. They picked him up in the draft, not the draft where you have to stay on the major league roster. But kind of watch that one if you kind of like I like to look in the minors, look at different guys. Will Wilson's his name, and we'll see if this is sort of a mirage or what. But that's a minor league report. All right, go to your Triston McKenzie. Let's
no,
get
it's
it
fine.
over.
That's one of my favorite parts of the podcast. You always watch the minor leagues like a hawk, and you're always looking to see who's doing what. So then guys get called up, and our listeners know about them. So
because there's one more minor league guy, but it'll fit into your McKenzie thing.
Okay, so it's interesting, Terry. I was thinking about Triston McKenzie, and I'm thinking about Miles Straw because I think we both saw this story about Miles Straw this week, and they're kind of connected to me, but it's going to take us a while to get there. So why don't we start with Triston McKenzie? It was a hard night to watch last night. He pitched 1 inning. The game was over against the Orioles practically, and they're trying to get him some kind of garbage innings to let him work some things out. But he threw 27 pitches. Gave up 4 earned runs, 3 hits. But beyond that, it was I never saw Steve Blass pitch back 40, 50 years ago, but he's famous. Steve Blass, I think he pitched for the Pirates, and he just got the yips and couldn't throw the ball over the plate anymore. And we've seen this, and I hate to go down that road, but I just feel like Triston McKenzie, if you talk about nebulous, like his pitch graph for this season, if you look, it looks like a nebula, like one of those star constellation things.
Parabolas or whatever they are.
Yeah. It is just scattered up and down, and he's throwing balls to the backstop and grounding them 6 feet in front of home plate. And you just feel so bad for him because he's
another
such
guy
a well-liked guy.
Who had that also. Rick Ankiel had that
with the Cardinals back
and
20 years ago.
An outfitter,
So he's thrown 123 pitches this season, Triston McKenzie, and 68 of them have not been in the strike zone.
Oh Lord!
Which is just and like he's missing by a lot, and it just seems like it's gone on him. So what should the Guardians do? What do you think is going to happen here?
The first thing I would do is I would call him in and say, we are doing a complete medical workup on you. Everything. From blood tests to your back to your elbow to everything. Even though velocity is still pretty good, something's wrong. Let's see if there's something physically
wrong. Start at
wrong.
ground zero. I like that. That's
what
smart.
So you do a total medical. Then I would say, all right, we're putting you. If somebody claims you, fine. You need to go somewhere and pitch. So I'd put him there and try to send him to AAA. And then I would bring up Walters. Remember who was here last year, the reliever from University of Miami, down at AAA. 6 2/3 innings, 1 earned run, 13 strikeouts. Get him here yesterday.
All right. So again, it got me thinking about Miles Straw
Uh-huh.
who is now playing for Toronto, 30 years old, right?
Of all things. Yeah.
Yeah, so he, after 14 games, and so Miles Straw basically he was further along in the process than Triston McKenzie was, where the Guardians brought him in. He started in center field, played really well, was great defensively, gave them some offensive production, but then just like lost it. The Guardians sent him to the minors, and then finally to Toronto, right? Which is where he is now. He's batting .355, Terry, this season after 14 games. He's got a .928 OPS, 31 at bats, 3 walks, 2 steals. I think the Jays are 11-8 going into Thursday night's
He's
action.
got a couple of doubles. He's got a home run. So there.
Yeah,
Now,
and I want to read these quotes, but then I'll
Yeah,
let
go
you
ahead.
respond. Right? He was doing an interview with Sportsnet, which is one of the networks up in Canada. I'm having the most fun I've probably had in my career. I'm happy to be here no matter what, whether I'm playing or not. I just look forward to helping the team win that day, and it's just fun. It's fun to be around these guys every day. I almost feel like I lost some love for the game. And when you start doing that, the game doesn't give love back to you. The last couple of years, it used to be defense was fun, and you'd come and hit, and it was just kind of like a competitive thing. Now I look forward to at bats, which is how it should be. Hitting should be fun. At times I can get too stiff and start thinking about things too much, and then you start thinking in the box instead of just becoming competitive. It takes things a certain way. Now my focus is just go up there and get a good pitch to hit and get your best swing off. And so it seems like he's just really simplified and tried to find the joy in the game that he had when he was younger, and just talk about starting over. That seems like what he's done. I'm just wondering how Triston McKenzie can get back to that. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, well, on Straw, I was a Straw guy. I liked him. He was a 300 hitter in the minors. I mean, not a lot of power, but you take a 300 hitter with OPS over 700 and a Gold Glove center fielder and who can steal bases. You can go with that you'll take that all day. I mean, that's a good player, which is why they gave him that 4-year contract or whatever it was. Then he had a good first year here. I think he had 270, and I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but it was fine. And of course, he won the Gold Glove. And then it's like he can't hit at all. I mean, it was just terrible. And even when he went down the minors to AAA, I think he had 235 or something. It looked just like here. And Toronto kind of amazed everybody by taking him. And maybe just I'm sure he's thrilled to be back in the big leagues after he was spent most of last year at Columbus. I don't know how long this will last, but I'm happy for him. But I do know, mentally, like we've watched Triston melt down. You can melt down at the plate, and they've tried so many different things with Straw, different batting coaches, different approaches. Pull the ball, don't pull the ball, all this stuff. And none of it worked. And so we'll see what happens. But I think even more alarming, though, is what's going on with Triston, because you would just think that he's hopeless if you were to see him. Now, I'm saying in a short, like you were sent, for example, to go out and watch Triston just this year pitch for a scout from another team. You go, what happened to this? And in the same way, you would look back at Straw, who hit 300 in the minors and hit whatever it was 270 something or whatever for Cleveland, and then watch the last couple of years where, the old line somebody told me, Scott says, you could roll the ball up to the plate. The guy couldn't pick it up, throw it up, and hit it and get a hit. I mean, he just messed up. And maybe it'll stick with Straw or that, but at least Straw was always helping you with the glove. The problem with a pitcher, when he goes really bad like McKenzie does, there's nothing else in his game that helps you.
Yeah. There's nothing else you can do.
And he's a great guy and the whole thing, but the first thing I would really go into a total medical. And you know what else that might do is maybe they discover there's something. Remember, because he was supposed to perhaps have Tommy John, and he didn't. Because remember this, when Shane Bieber last year, right around this time, had pitched 12 innings with 20 strikeouts and allowed 1 run, and was throwing in the middle 90s, and he needed Tommy John surgery.
Hence your point about going back and getting the full medical and making sure everything.
Exactly.
Because if there's something that feels a little bit off, his mechanics might be off, which might make everything off. So that's a really good point.
All right, and I've been getting some stuff. Remember, Jimenez hit a couple home runs right away. He's sitting 203.
Oh yeah,
So-
we have an
Yeah.
email about that. You want me to read it?
Yeah.
Okay, this is from Jim Mullen, and I want to be fair to Jim. He sent this in about a week and a half ago, so that was when the kind of Jimenez fast start had happened. But he says, "Hey Terry, on your podcast, you and David didn't have much to say about the Guardians essentially giving away a platinum glove second baseman, Andres Jimenez. Yes, his hitting had tailed off, but in the recent past, he had hit real well. But everybody, you included, seemed to think he would recover that well again. Not only that, but the Guardians had signed him for long term. He fit their business plan perfectly. I was baffled and remain baffled why they traded him for a salary dump, let alone for a bad pitcher. With moves like that, the Guardians deserve what they get this year. I think they will be barely 500. So he's talking about Luis Ortiz, who had a rough start in spring training and a rough start to the season. But things have kind of evened out a little bit since then. You want me to run through the numbers, then you can weigh in on this?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
All right, Jimenez through 19 games, and again, we're taping this on Thursday afternoon. He's batting 203 now with a 677 OPS, and with 3 homers, 8 RBIs, 8 walks, 15 strikeouts. I think the Jays are 11-8.
By the way, he is his last couple weeks. I just did a 2-week snapshot.
Mhm.
He's 6 for 43. So he's
Okay.
he's in the dumper right now. That
All right.
said, he'll probably end up hitting about 245 or 250, and he'll hit 12 home runs, and he'll play the best second base I've ever seen.
All right, and Ortiz, 3 games with the Guardians, 6.06 ERA, 16 and a third innings, 1-2 record, 6 walks, 15 strikeouts. But he's kind of trending up. I think we saw in the last start. It was 5 2/3 against the Royals, 1 hit, 1 earned run, 10 strikeouts.
And even the start before that was decent. I think it was 3 runs in 6 innings or 3 runs in 5 innings. The first start was a disaster. So maybe they're getting him fixed. The problem with Jimenez is they just overpaid him. That was all. And then they got scared seeing that contract. And to Mark Shapiro's credit, he's got a big budget there in Toronto. They need to win some games. And it's like, if I had a big budget, fine, I'll live with Andres, not batting 203, but getting back to his regular thing. And because he's going to save me 8 zillion runs. So lurking in the background was Bazana, who they drafted number 1 overall, and Brito, who they traded at the time. Nolan Jones considered a good prospect for him, 2 second basemen. And I think they looked at that and said, we won't get as good a defense, but we should get more offense, and we got to get rid of this payroll because we blew it. I mean, that's basically
and we're going to be paying for it for years.
Years, because he starts getting into the, I think it's 10 million this year, then it goes 15 million, then it's 3 consecutive years of 23 million. So they were worried about that. A couple other things I just saw. Josh Naylor's off to a good start. 328. 955 OPS, 3 home runs. So that's there, and that's really those are all the kind of baseball notes I took looking around.
All right. Yeah, and I think the Ortiz-Jimenez thing is going to be an ongoing comparison, but I think in the end it's probably just going to be. I think both teams will be fine with it. In the end, we'll see. I could be wrong, but
the Guardians really were worried about their starting pitching, and that's part of the reason. What's his name? Slate Ciccone, that they traded Naylor for. Now remember, they also viewed it as Carlos Santana, Ciccone, and they have what amounts to a 2nd round pick in this upcoming draft for Naylor, who's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. Now Ciccone got the dreaded oblique injury in spring training. We know nothing what's going on with him at all because he's not pitching. And we will see. Carlos actually isn't hitting his usual 188, and I will say this: he has saved a couple runs too on at first base. He's really good digging the ball out, and so that's been a positive.
All right. Well, the Guardians are wrapping up their series tonight against the Orioles in Baltimore, and then they have the Pirates on the road this weekend, and they're home next week against the Yankees Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the Red Sox come in after that next
How
weekend.
about that? Nice favor for the schedule makers and the
Yeah.
two biggest draws from out of,
In the cold weather. So
yeah, don't get me started.
yeah. All right, we'll move on to some happier news than the April weather down at the ballpark.
Yeah.
You were at Cavs practice, as
Oh, I
you
want to
mentioned
say
earlier.
something about the ballpark because I'm going to
Yeah.
write about this. I took a tour last Friday, and there I went to the terrace area, the new terrace area. There's two of them.
Down the
There's
left
kind of
field
one.
line?
Yeah. The terrace go up. There's one where you kind of have to pay extra or whatever, but I went up where the folks were, the standing room only and that. I think this is a tremendous buy for, you can get it for that $42 or whatever it is for a month.
For the month, yeah.
Yeah, and you can go up there, and they got it's got the television sets all over. Of course, they're trying to sell you food and drinks and that, but it's a nice view. We have to understand it started with the corner bar, down the right field line, and to all these other things, and people like this stuff, and it's a good situation. Now, if you're of my generation and your idea is to go to a game, sit in a chair, and keep score, it's probably not for you. But a lot, most of my generation are just sitting at home watching the game on TV anyway, so we almost don't have a vote. And whereas the rest of this, and they'll still sell you a seat, obviously, but I was surprised how it almost was like having you been in the press box there, because there are plenty of places to sit down, benches and things, where you could kind of watch the game and then flip to the TV, which is running a little bit behind the game, and catch up and watch it. Check it out. Go down there and walk down there. Just take a look at it.
It looks great from the outside. I haven't been in yet, but I'm going to get down there soon.
Yeah, very nice.
Good. All right, Cavs practice today, Terry. This was kind of the first time they were available this week to talk to the media. What did you think of what you saw? And I know you had some stuff to ask Kenny Atkinson. And
right.
Yeah,
well, you don't see much of anything in practice. They let you in afterwards, and everybody's shooting around, and that's about it. The medical report on everybody is good. Everybody's healthy, ready to go. So Kenny did a general press thing, and then Kenny and I talked a little bit afterwards. Chris Fedor was there for it too, and we were talking about, I'm going to write about this, how a coach has to be careful going to the playoffs. I mean, the playoffs are important, but he says, I can't go into like Kenny playoff mode where I'm all uptight. He says, I can't suddenly take a 40-minute shoot around and turn into an hour and 10 minutes. I can't pound them to death with film. He says, you have to be kind of normal. And he said, when he was young coach at Brooklyn, they made the playoffs, he did not do that. And he said he learned a lot of that from Steve Kerr and lesser extent from Ty Lue. And he also said that then when needed, he said he's been letting his assistants run quite a bit of the practice. So when needed, he steps in. He says, well, believe me, everything in my body wants to just get out there and throw all this stuff at him. Because, this has been like a dream job for him. He was like, got this job at the age of 58. He'd been a head coach just for 3.5 years with Brooklyn, which was he continued to get them a little better, but it was a losing proposition from the beginning. And he wondered if he'd ever get another head coaching opportunity again. And now he did turn down the Charlotte job a couple of years ago. And by the way, Steve Kerr advised him to do that. He was with Golden State. And Steve said, Kenny, you hang here. And because he knew that this would be Kenny's last shot. After that, he'd be a top assistant. So Cleveland comes open. He gets it. They roll out to a 16-game winning streak to start the season. They would get the number one seed. And, this is like a career changer for him. Not that these guys all make a lot of money. Remember, these assistant coaches who are higher up, that's $1 million job too. It has nothing to do with money. That's what people always say. Well, they're in for the money or whatever. These guys are all millionaires already.
Yeah. Imagine having to coaching in New Orleans or some of these places that have no chance of ever winning.
But they want to win. That's why they're driven by that. And So it was interesting to see how he's become much more self-aware. He's thinking about this stuff, but he also was talking about how just because how we start the playoffs a certain way, be it with lineups, rotations, he goes, there's no guarantee we're going to stay with that. He goes, you have to be willing to adapt, and it can change from series to series. And I just thought he was very self-aware. I mean, I'm a big Kenny Atkinson fan, and I pushed for him to get the job after they fired JB. And I'm so happy for him because the reason being, Mike Fratello had him when he was a young coach. Fratello was coaching the Ukraine national team, and Kenny, I think, was with the Knicks or somewhere real early on, and he brought him in as his assistant on the Ukraine team. And then later on, when Kenny was coaching at Brooklyn, Fratello was doing the games for, I think, the Yes Network or whatever the cable network was there. So he was at practices and everything else. And he just kept telling me, he goes, this guy's a heck of a coach. He's really good. And he just needs a chance. He's not a big name player. He didn't play in the NBA. I think he played it was called the CBA back then and played overseas. And here he is. But nonetheless, if you're Kenny right now, this has been going so good. And coaches, they have that kind of like the CIA guy whose thing is to make the worst case scenario, sits in a room with that. And part of you has to stay away from that thinking because you can't, lose it the minute something goes wrong.
And just resisting that urge to try and fix everything in real
right
time.
Away.
Yeah,
Right away.
Yeah. So the Cavs will be playing on Sunday night against either the Heat or the Hawks. The Heat and the Hawks play tomorrow, Friday night at 7 in the play-in game. Do you think would you rather see the Hawks or the Heat as the Cavs' first-round opponent?
I'll take the Hawks. Yeah, I'll take the Hawks. Just because the Heat with Spoelstra, they're just a pain in the butt to play. They are. They always are. And you may beat them, but it's just, they'll make it agony. They just will.
And, I know Chris Fedor has been writing like it doesn't matter who they play, probably, because they're going to win. But I was looking, I was trying to think which team I think would be a better long-term help to the Cavs in getting through. And I just was looking at one stat, which the Celtics lead the league in three-point attempt rate, right? Which is like 53% of all their shots are three-point.
Staggering what they do.
It is staggering. And I'm like, all right, well, which team is the most closest to that the Cavs would play? Which team would be? So the Heat are 12th. 42.9% of their shots are three-pointers, and the Hawks are, I think, 19th. So anyway, I think it might help the Cavs the most to have to play the Heat because of what you just talked about. I think it might point out some early deficiencies that they could address when they have a talent advantage that might help them later. And I also think closing out on those threes might help them down the road. So I don't know.
It's possible.
I guess we'll see what happens.
I'd rather, the more I could skate early through the early rounds, as opposed to, last year I did pick the Cavs to win over Orlando in 7, but I hated the idea of playing 7 because I know Jamal Mosley coached. Paulo Banchero is a star on the rise. They were just, they're kind of like JB's team. They're just a pain to play.
Yeah. And you're right, Terry. It's a good point. Rest is really important.
Yeah. And the other thing, because you go back and look, and we don't know how much of an impact that load that Donovan carried in those games. Remember, he's scoring 40 points and all these things and playing 46 minutes trying to get them through that series. And how much did that have to do with him pulling the calf muscle in, after game 2 or whatever that was? We don't know, but I'll tell you this. You'd rather have played it in 4 or 5 games than go through a brutal 7 games.
No, that's true. That's true. Anything else on the Cavs, Terry? There's not much to say. They just need to go out and win, right?
It's time to play ball.
All right. I did want to mention we've had some really great Cavs coverage this week, and if people want to check it out, Chris Fedor has an awesome story on Ty Jerome today. Yeah. If you get a chance to look at that at cleveland.com/Cavs, it's about how Ty Jerome was kind of really struggling with all of his injury problems and wondering if he'd ever be able to have a productive NBA career. And you look at what he's done with the Cavs this season, and Chris kind of went into that with him. So check that out. And also Ethan Sands has a couple of great stories. One about Donovan Mitchell, teammate, which is something you've been talking a lot about, Terry, and instead of chasing numbers, he's been tried to be the ultimate teammate and bring everybody
Those
along.
guys are both terrific.
Yeah, they're doing a great job. And also, Ethan has another story today on Tristan Thompson's broadcasting future. So check those out too. Yeah, a lot going on with the Cavs, and we've got some really good coverage. And so check that all out. So, all right, Terry. So we'll wrap up with a couple of emails here, and there's kind of two things we've been reading emails about. And again, if you want to hit us with any comments, questions, sports@cleveland.com, and put Terry's Talking in the subject line. We've been reading people's opening day stories. We have one of those, and then we've also been talking about people listening to radios back in the old day, trying to listen to games when they maybe shouldn't have been. So we've got some of those too. This first one's from Steve Van Auker, and Steve says, "Hey guys, I'm late with my remembrance of opening days at the old stadium, but in 1960, my dad took me to the second game of the season versus the Detroit Tigers. I was heartbroken because Rocky Colavito had been traded to Detroit. He'd been my favorite player as well as all the kids in my neighborhood. I remember the Indians lost the game and Colavito homered in the first off Jim Perry. My dad and I always wondered how the 1960s would have been different if Frank Trader Lane had not traded Roger Maris, Norm Cash, and the Rockaway. It would have been a formidable offensive lineup." So thanks for that, Steve.
You could also throw Tito Francona into that bunch too. That was Terry's dad, who was a really solid player. Yeah, it was like he traded the team into oblivion.
Thanks, Steve. Steve was checking in from Hilton Head, South Carolina. All right, and our next email is from Anthony in Medina. And Anthony says, "Hey, Terry and David, I was in high school in 2007 when the Indians made it into the playoffs. I was in a bit of a dilemma for Game 2 of the ALDS against the Yankees because we had a high school football game and I played trombone in the marching band.
Okay.
Well, I decided to sneak my little Walkman radio under my uniform so I could listen to the game. I even listened to the game as we played the halftime show. It was very difficult to play an instrument, march, and keep tabs on the game all at the same time. The band director noticed what was happening because I was constantly making mistakes and marching on the wrong foot. He had some strongly worded things to say to me after the halftime show, but he let me keep my radio. I'm glad he did because I got to listen to Tom Hamilton describe the swarm of midges that halted play, and I got to hear my favorite player, Travis Hafner, get a walk-off hit to win the game. Right as that happened, the stands at our football game erupted in applause, apparently because many others also had brought their radio to listen to the Tribe game that night." And Anthony says, "Thanks for all you do. The podcast enriches my life, and I look forward to it each week." Thanks for that, Anthony. Great story. A memorable game for a lot of fans who remember the Midge game. So, all right, and this last one is from Patty. She says, "Hey, Terry and David, when you asked for stories about sneaking a radio somewhere to listen to a sporting event, I just had to write. On November 17th, 1979, I was a bridesmaid in my best friend's wedding. As luck would have it, that was the date of the Ohio State-Michigan game. She and her fiancé caught plenty of grief over that. I decided to take my transistor radio to church to listen to the early part of the game before the ceremony began. I dutifully turned it off and put it with my coat in the pew behind me, but her dad then borrowed it for a couple of minutes before putting it back on the pew. In the middle of the ceremony, the bridesmaid next to me whispered that she could hear my radio. Oops. It seems that my friend's dad hadn't turned it off completely. No one else seemed to notice, and the ceremony went on as planned. Of course, the minute we got into one of the cars taking us to the reception, I made sure the driver tuned into the game so we could hear the final moments. Upon arriving at the reception hall, I made sure the band announced the final score, 18-15 Buckeyes. It was Earl Bruce's first rivalry game. It was a perfect day in every way, and the happy couple is still married. Thank you for your always informative and entertaining podcast. You never fail to deliver." Thanks, Patty. That's a great story.
It really is nice. It is funny how this is how sports connects on a human level, family level, all that stuff. That it may be a cliche, but they're cliches because they're true.
That's right. And sports, you're right. It does connect us in life in so many ways.
Yeah.
So. All right. I think we're done, right, Terry?
That is it.
All right. Don't forget to check out Terry's newsletter again, cleveland.com/Pluto, the blue bar at the top. And we will talk to next week. We'll have draft and Cavs playoff stuff to talk about. Lots going on in Cleveland sports. We will see you then on Terry's Talkin'.